I always thought betrayal would come with warning signs. A cold shoulder, a missed call, an email that felt off. Turns out, sometimes it comes with balloons, a sheet cake, and a fake smile. The day my life fell apart, the HR girl brought cupcakes. I was in conference room B, staring at a PowerPoint slide I'd built at 2 a.m. when my boss, Derek, stepped in. Behind him, the HR manager hovered like a nervous ghost, clutching a manila folder. My stomach dropped. "Ayla," Derek said, using that smooth tone he saved for clients and lies, "can we talk for a minute?" We both knew talk meant destroy. I followed them into the smaller glass room across the hall, the kind where you can see everyone outside, but they pretend not to look. Derek sat. HR sat. I stayed standing. "This is just a business decision," Derek started. I laughed. I actually laughed. A business decision? After 6 years? HR pushed a paper toward me. "Due to restructuring, I repeated. "Right. Is that what we're calling it? 6 years at Allerton Dynamics. 6 years building strategies, writing pitches, staying late, saving deals Derek almost tanked. I'd trained half the team. I'd cleaned up his messes, softened his emails, covered when he disappeared on golf meetings that smelled like whiskey and cologne when he came back. And now I was being restructured. "We appreciate your contributions," HR said. Derek didn't even look at me when he added, "You'll get a severance package. It's generous, considering market conditions." I stared at him, really stared, and saw it. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't guilty. He was relieved. This wasn't a surprise to him. This was planned. "How long have you known?" I asked quietly. He finally met my eyes. "This isn't personal, Ayla." That was my answer. It was absolutely personal. Because 3 weeks earlier, he'd called me his right hand during a client dinner. Because 2 weeks earlier, he'd asked me to finish the proposal for the Winslow account as if I were doing it myself. Because 3 days earlier, he told me, "Trust me, you're safe. If anyone goes, it won't be you. Trust me." I signed the papers with a calm hand and a shaking heart. They walked me to my desk like I was some kind of threat. A security guard watched while I slid my framed photo, me and my parents at the beach, into a cardboard box. People pretended not to stare. My closest co-worker, Jenna, rushed over, eyes bright and wet. "What happened?" "Are you okay?" "I just heard restructuring," I said, my voice flat. She glanced at Derek's office. He knew. I swear he knew. "Last week he asked me to sit in on your client calls." Said it was cross-training. My chest burned. Cross-training? Of course. He'd been slowly replacing me while assuring me I was safe. "I'll text you," Jenna whispered, hugging me. "This is wrong." "Everyone knows you carried him." I nodded, but words felt useless. On my way out, I walked past the break room. The cupcake sat on the table. Little frosted lies. Someone had scribbled on the whiteboard, "Happy Q4 push." Let's crush it. I wanted to pick up that marker and write what they'd really done. Instead, I walked out with my box, my dignity, and a storm growing in my chest. Outside, the sky was gray. The wind knifed through my blazer. I stood on the sidewalk, surrounded by strangers, blinking like I just stepped out of a theater and the world had changed while I was inside. My phone buzzed. It was an email from Derek, sent to the entire company, excited to announce a new chapter of leadership and innovation. As we streamline operations, I'll be taking a more direct role with key accounts. He'd attached screenshots of my presentations, my taglines, my strategies, my work, repackaged as his vision. He hadn't just fired me, he'd taken everything. That night, I sat on the floor of my tiny apartment, my box of office life spread around me, the photo of my parents, the mug Jenna bought me that said Boss Brain, a stack of notebooks filled with client notes, timelines, ideas. I flipped one open. My handwriting stared back at me. notes on the Winslow proposal, risk modeling, market entry angles, the exact strategy Derek had just bragged about in his email. I felt something inside me tilt. Losing my job hurt. Being erased? That lit something else. My mom called. "Sweetheart," Jenna texted me. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, I lied. You don't sound fine. I just need to think." There was a pause. Then her voice softened. They don't know what they lost. I inhaled slowly. Maybe not yet. After we hung up, I opened my laptop. If Derek was going to steal my work and my future, I wanted to know exactly what he'd done. First, I checked LinkedIn. He'd already updated his headline. Driving transformation at Allerton Dynamics. Leading strategic vision for high-impact accounts. I scrolled further. There it was. A post. A photo of Derek standing at the front of a conference room, my conference room, gesturing at a slide I'd made. My color scheme, my phrasing, my data. The caption, proud to present our upcoming strategy to the team. Huge thanks to everyone who helped bring this vision together. He didn't mention my name once. The comments made my vision blur. Genius direction as always, Derek. Game-changing concept. Heard this is why Allerton is moving ahead of competitors. They were worshipping the thief while the creator sat on her floor eating cold noodles. A slow, cold clarity settled over me. This wasn't just corporate politics. This was calculated. He'd used me to build the ship, then tossed me overboard before the launch so he could stand on the deck alone when the camera showed up. I closed my eyes and saw it play out. Winslow signs with Allerton. Derek gets the bonus, the promotion, the panel invites, the interviews about leadership and innovation. My ideas become his legacy. No, not happening. I opened my notebooks again. Page after page of ideas, including ones Derek had never seen. Alternate structures, backup strategies, variations I'd cut because he didn't want to confuse the client. He didn't even realize how much I'd held back. I smiled, just a little. If he wanted to build his empire on my work, I was going to make sure the foundation cracked at the worst possible moment. But revenge isn't just anger. Anger burns hot and fast, then it fades. What I felt that night was colder, sharper, patient. I started with research. Winslow Industries. I'd studied them for months, but now I studied them like an enemy strategist. Press releases, interviews with their CEO, earnings calls. Every mention of risk tolerance and brand perception and global expansion concerns. Then I found it. A short comment from their CFO during an investor Q&A, almost an afterthought. A concern about overexposure in emerging markets, especially given past missteps. Our pitch, Derek's vision, was built around exactly that. Aggressive expansion. Market dominance. Inside my head, a puzzle piece clicked into place. We drafted a contingency plan, a softer rollout option, a version that acknowledged their fear and offered a slower timeline. Derek had called it timid and ordered me to delete it. I hadn't. I never deleted anything. I dug into my archived folders and found it, the alternative proposal. Rough, unfinished, but alive. It was more cautious, but more aligned with what Winslow's decision makers obviously wanted. Derek was walking into their boardroom with a plan that ignored their biggest anxiety. And I had the plan that didn't. My heart pounded. If I could get this in front of the right person at Winslow, not only would it undermine Derek's pitch, it would show them exactly who was really behind the strategy. But I was no longer a senior strategy lead at a shiny company. I was just a nobody with a laptop. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Who did I know at Winslow? Then I remembered. 2 months earlier, during a late-night draft session, I'd gotten an email from a Winslow analyst named Caleb. He'd asked for clarification on some of the projections. I'd replied. We'd bounced a few emails back and forth. He'd thanked me for actually explaining things like a human. I opened my work email, forgetting for a moment that it was gone. Access denied. Of course. I closed my eyes. Think, Ayla. I searched my personal inbox. Buried between newsletters and order confirmations, I found it, one forwarded email sent from my work account to my personal, so I could look at it over the weekend. Caleb's signature line. His direct email. My pulse quickened. I created a new draft. Finger hovering over the keyboard, I hesitated. Was I really about to do this? Cut through all the corporate layers, outrun my ENDA, and go straight to the client with a pitch my former employer would absolutely sue me over if they knew? Yes, because Derek hadn't just fired me. He'd erased me. And people who erase others rarely stop after one. I started typing. Hi, Caleb. You probably remember me as the person behind the models and strategy drafts for the Allerton-Winslow proposal. I kept it simple. Clean. Professional. I didn't trash Allerton. I didn't rant about Derek. I just showed my work. I explained that I was no longer with the company, but I had developed an alternative framework that more directly addressed Winslow's risk concerns. I attached the draft. I asked nothing from him. No job, no favor, just that he pass it along to whoever is championing risk evaluation internally, if he thought it was worth a look. Then I hovered over the send button. My hands were shaking. I thought of Derek's face that morning. Calm, detached, already moved on. I hit send. The email vanished from the screen. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the panic hit. What if he ignored it? What if Winslow forwarded it to Allerton? What if Derek saw it and came after me? I paced the apartment until my legs hurt. I made coffee I didn't drink. I refreshed my inbox so many times my thumb went numb. Nothing. Midnight. Nothing. 1 a.m. Still nothing. The buzz of adrenaline began to fade, replaced by exhaustion and the sick familiar fear that maybe I'd just made things worse. Finally, sometime after 2 a.m., I crawled into bed. My laptop sat open on the nightstand, one stubborn little rectangle of light in the dark room. I slept like you do when you're falling, and never hit the ground. When I woke up, my phone screen was lit. 3 new emails, one from my bank, one from some spam newsletter, and one from a domain that made my throat go dry. At winslowindustries.com, I opened it with trembling hands. Hi, Ayla. Thank you for sending this. I remember your work very clearly. We need to talk. There's something you should know about the Allerton proposal. And about Derek. Are you available for a call today? I stared at the message, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. There it was. Confirmation. Not just that my work had been noticed, but that something was wrong. Something bigger than a stolen credit. Bigger than a single firing. I typed back, fingers moving almost on their own. Name the time, because in that moment, sitting on the edge of my bed with my old life in a cardboard box on the floor, I understood something. I hadn't lost everything. I still had the truth. And I was about to find out exactly how ugly things were inside Allerton, and how far I'd have to go to bring it all crashing down. The call came at 11:07 a.m. I'd been sitting on my couch for an hour, my laptop open, my coffee untouched, staring at the same email like it might disappear if I blinked too hard. When my phone finally rang, I almost dropped it. Hello? My voice sounded tight. Ayla? It's Caleb. He sounded the same as I remembered. Calm, analytical, a little tired. The kind of person who could talk numbers all day without losing patience. Thanks for calling, I said. No, he replied. Thank you for emailing. I was, honestly surprised. Not that you reached out, but that you're not with Allerton anymore. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah. Me too. There was a short pause. Then he said quietly, I suspected something was off the last few weeks. We kept getting conflicting answers from Derek, and when he presented the preliminary strategy last month, it didn't match the foundation you'd walked me through. I froze. He presented? Yes. He told our leadership team that you had stepped back from the project and that he had taken over the direction personally. My stomach twisted. Step back? He fired me. I figured, he said. It didn't make sense. The data patterns changed. The narrative changed. And not in a good way. I closed my eyes. I could picture it. Derek stepping into a room full of executives, gesturing to slides he didn't understand, fielding questions he wasn't equipped to answer, selling confidence he hadn't earned. What did he show them? I asked. Caleb hesitated, and then, in a low voice that carried more weight than he probably realized, he said, he showed them a strategy guaranteed to explode in their faces within a year. My pulse skipped. Explain. Our CFO has been raising concerns about market exposure, loudly. The board is nervous. The aggressive approach Allerton pitched? If Winslow pulls the trigger on that, it could crash our valuation. Risk-wise, it's a disaster. And Derek didn't address any of that? No. He dismissed every concern. Said we were being too cautious and that his model predicted minimal downside. I almost choked. His model. Caleb exhaled. I know. The model was yours. The heat in my chest felt like a furnace. So why hasn't your team shut it down already? I asked. He sighed. Because Derek has friends on our board. And because he talks like a guy who gets rooms to follow him. Flashy, confident. The kind of leader who oversells and somehow gets away with it. I swallowed hard. That was exactly who he was. But your alternative proposal, Caleb continued, aligned perfectly with the CFO's concerns. When I saw it, it clicked. It feels like the version that was supposed to exist. It was, I whispered. He paused again, then asked gently, Can I ask what happened? Why would he remove the safer version? I hesitated. Do I tell him Derek's real philosophy? That he liked big moves because big moves got headlines? And headlines got promotions? That he once said, risk is only scary to people who don't know how to spin it afterward? Do I tell him Derek thought cautious strategies made him look weak? Do I tell him he wanted a win so loud the board couldn't ignore him? Instead, I said, because he didn't care if it succeeded, only if it made him look bold. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, that tracks. I blew out a shaky breath. So what now? That's the part I needed to warn you about, he replied. Our CEO asked Allerton for updated documentation this morning. Derek sent something at 7 a.m. and it included slides I know you never created. My blood ran cold. What kind of slides? Financial projections, models that don't make sense. It looks like he tried to reverse engineer your original framework, but he did it wrong. Very wrong. I pressed a trembling hand to my forehead. He's faking projections. Badly, Caleb confirmed. And when this blows up, one of two things will happen. Either Allerton will blame Derek, he paused, or Derek will blame you. A cold, heavy silence settled between us. I whispered, he's already framing me. Caleb didn't deny it. I thought you should know. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, the truth hitting me in a way that felt physical. Derek hadn't just fired me. He'd fired me to set up a scapegoat. He wanted all the credit if the deal landed, and someone to blame if it collapsed. I was perfect, disposable, powerless, gone. Unless I didn't stay quiet. I sat up straighter. Caleb, can you send me the materials Derek submitted? He hesitated. I'm not supposed to share internal review documents. I understand, I said, but I'm walking into a legal nightmare if his work collapses and he points it in my direction. I need to know what he's using my name on. There was a pause. Then he said slowly, Give me an hour. When the call ended, I stared at my reflection in the dark TV screen. My face was pale. My eyes were tired. I looked like a woman who'd been blindsided, humiliated, discarded. But under that, something harder, something sharper, something awake. An hour later, a new email arrived. From Caleb. Attached, a PDF labeled Revised Proposal, Allerton. My heart pounded as I opened it. Page after page of my work twisted into something unrecognizable. My models padded with false numbers. My graphs revised into absurd shapes. My language replaced with buzzwords Derek loved: synergy, dominance, growth frontier. I felt sick. Then I saw it. Slide 14. Initial strategy development, led by E. Read My Name. Still on the document. Still attached to projections I never created. Projections that, if Winslow acted on them, could trigger millions in losses. And Derek had positioned it so that he was merely refining the work his former team member had begun. A ready-made alibi. He had planned this. Meticulously. Carefully. Months in advance, a chill crawled up my spine. I opened my notebook again, skimming through my own handwriting, searching for something, anything, that could blow this apart. Then I found it. A scribbled note I'd written at 1014 a.m. weeks ago. Risk threshold break at 23%. Requires recalibration on all projections if exceeded. I had run simulations Derek had never seen. Simulations that proved the aggressive strategy only worked under impossible stability conditions. Meaning, if any variable shifted, if the market dipped, if a supplier faltered, if a region underperformed, the entire model collapsed. And I had the raw data. The timestamped files. The version history. Proof. Hard proof. Evidence that Derek had knowingly removed the warning slides from the deck so he could push through a high-risk strategy that made him look like a visionary, even if it wrecked the client. My breathing slowed. This wasn't just incompetence, this was negligence. Fraud, even. And now he was pinning the faulty foundation on me. Not anymore. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Isla, it's Jenna. Don't freak out. I found something." I called her instantly. She answered whispering. "I'm in the office bathroom. You won't believe this." "What?" I overheard Derek with legal. My stomach tightened. What did he say? That you left holes in the Winslow models. That you ignored major risk factors. He said you were overwhelmed and struggling with the workload. He called your work sloppy. My jaw clenched. He's building the narrative. There's more. Her voice cracked. He told them you might retaliate emotionally because you took the firing hard. He said they should prepare a response in case you caused trouble. My blood went cold. He's painting me as unstable. Yes, I closed my eyes. Of course he was. Derek loved that strategy, attack the credibility of whoever could expose him. It didn't matter if the truth was on their side. If he controlled the narrative early, he won. Not this time. Jenna, I said, steadying my voice, "Can you do something for me?" "Anything. I need access to the version history on the Winslow drafts, the risk threshold simulations, the deleted slides." She inhaled sharply. "That's risky." "I know. I could get fired. You could," I said gently. "And if you don't want to, I understand." But she didn't hesitate. "No, I'll do it. He can't get away with this." Something inside me broke and reformed in the same breath. "Thank you. I'll send whatever I find," she whispered. "But be careful. Derek's paranoid right now. He keeps checking his office door like someone's following him." "What's he afraid of?" I asked quietly. Then I answered my own question. He knew the truth was out there. He just didn't know how close it was to landing on his desk. After we hung up, the apartment felt too quiet, too still. Like the moment before a storm hits. I opened my laptop again. One by one, I organized the files I did have, my drafts, my notes, the data Derek had ignored, the simulations he'd never bothered to understand. Then I created a new folder on my desktop. Allerton, evidence my hands didn't shake anymore. At 3:22 p.m., another email arrived. From Caleb. Subject line, "You need to see this." Inside was a forwarded internal memo from Winslow's legal team. Concerns, inconsistencies in Allerton's financial models, missing risk disclosures, possible misrepresentation of initial strategy authorship, potential breach of fiduciary duty by Allerton executive A tremor moved through my chest. Then Caleb's note beneath it. We want you to brief our CFO privately, off the record, before the board meeting next week. I blinked. They wanted me. Not Allerton, not Derek. Me. A wave of fierce electric clarity washed over me. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was survival. This was justice. This was the moment I stopped being the woman Derek erased and became the one who could destroy the lie he'd built. I typed a reply. Tell me when and where. Because part of me had always believed karma eventually finds its way to people like Derek. But I wasn't waiting for karma anymore. I was coming for him myself. By the time I stepped into the private conference room at the Winslow building, 3 days had passed. 3 days of emails, calls, evidence gathering, and the slow burning realization that I was walking directly into the fight of my life. The room was quiet, sleek, coated in brushed steel and glass. The kind of room where fortunes changed, where deals were born or buried, where one wrong answer could cost someone their career. The CFO, Maren Locke, stood as I walked in, tall, precise, sharp-eyed, the type of leader who never wasted a second or a word. Miss Reed, she said, offering her hand. Thank you for coming. I shook her hand. Mine was steady, shockingly steady. Thank you for the invitation, I replied. We sat at opposite ends of the long table. I set down my laptop, my folders, my notebooks, every piece of evidence I had gathered. From the corner of the room, another person stepped forward. Caleb. He gave me a small nod. One that said, You're not alone. Not this time. Maren folded her hands. Let's begin. I'd like to hear, in your own words, how the Allerton proposal was developed. Start wherever you feel is most relevant. I took a breath. I built it. She blinked once, slowly. Go on. I led the initial research. I created the models. I drafted the narrative structure. Everything up to the point where Derek, my former supervisor, removed me from the project. Removed you? She repeated. Fired me. I corrected. And replaced sections of the strategy with his own. Fabrications. I opened my laptop and mirrored the screen onto their conference display. Slide thumbnails filled the wall. This, I said, tapping slide 3, is my work. My model. My data. Tap. This, tapping slide 6, is Derek's revision. He inflated the projections by 16% and deleted the disclaimers. I clicked again. And this slide, I said, revealing slide 14, my name printed beneath distorted numbers, was left intact on purpose. So if the inflated strategy failed, he could claim I was the one who built it. Silence. Heavy. Electric. Waiting. Finally, Maren leaned back. Show me the raw simulations. I did. Every chart. Every timestamp. Every version history reference, including the ones Jenna had risked her job to retrieve. At some point, Caleb stepped closer to the screen, brow furrowing deeper with every page. When the last slide appeared, a risk threshold graph showing the exact point the entire plan would collapse, Maren exhaled slowly through her nose. Allerton knew this? She asked. He knew it, I said. I didn't use Derek's name with respect anymore. And he hid it. And you have proof? Yes. I clicked a folder titled Deleted Slides. Then another titled Ignored Thresholds. Then a third, Original Notes. Then email traces. Then Slack archives I'd exported months earlier, containing Derek's messages demanding bolder numbers and telling me to cut the fear language. Maren stared at the screen like she was watching a slow-moving car crash finally reach impact. Then she spoke, voice low. This is fraud. My throat tightened, but not with fear, with relief. Someone finally said it. And negligence, Caleb added quietly. Severe negligence. Maren tapped her pen once against the table. Why didn't you come forward earlier, Miss Reed? I was fired, I said softly. Locked out of the system. Erased. And yet, she said, you kept everything. I met her eyes. I kept it because I knew I'd need to, not because I wanted a fight, but because I knew one was coming. She regarded me for a long moment, not with pity, not with sympathy, with respect. "Caleb," she said, "arrange for Miss Reed to brief the board tomorrow morning." My heart stuttered. "The board?" "Yes, if you're willing." I was. I absolutely was. "Of course." "Good," she said, standing. "We're at a crossroads here. If Allerton signs this deal under false pretenses, our company could take a devastating financial hit. And if your evidence is accurate, and I believe it is, we will need to take legal action against them." Her eyes sharpened. "And against Derek Hastings personally." The name cracked through the room like ice. For 6 years, that name had ruled my life, my days, my weekends, my sanity. Now it was being spoken like a warning, a target. We wrapped the meeting after an hour, though it felt like minutes. When I stepped into the hallway, I braced myself against the wall, breathing hard. Everything was shifting, fast. The elevator dinged. Caleb stepped out beside me. "You did good in there. I felt like I talked too fast. You talked like someone who finally got to tell the truth." We stood silently for a moment. Then he said, "You know this won't be easy. Allerton won't go down quietly. I know. Derek definitely won't. I know. He's going to fight back." I looked at him. Really looked. I'm not afraid of him anymore. Caleb gave a small smile. "Good, because this is probably going to get ugly." Ugly was an understatement. By the next morning, rumors swarmed Allerton's hallways like hornets. Jenna texted me every few hours. "Derek's panicking. He cancelled all meetings. Legal is in his office. He told the analysts you hacked company files. He said you're unstable. He's trying to spin something." Of course he was. When people like Derek feel power slipping, they don't crumble. They thrash. They rewrite the story. They deflect. They lie until the lies become a shield they think no one can break through. But I had the truth. The next day at 8:00 a.m., I walked into a boardroom filled with the most powerful people at Winslow Industries. The table stretched forever. The windows looked out over the city like they owned it, which they probably did. Marin sat at the head, Caleb at her right, and me at the center of everything, with a laptop full of evidence and a voice that refused to shake. I presented for 40 minutes straight. When I finished, the room went silent. Then the CEO spoke. "We need to suspend all negotiations with Allerton immediately." Another board member added, "and launch a full audit of their submitted materials." Another, "and notify the SEC if falsified data was used to influence market decisions." Another, "This could topple Hastings." Could. Would. By noon, Allerton's phone lines were exploding. I knew because Jenna called me from a stairwell, whispering like the walls could hear her. "He's losing it," she said. Derek screaming. He threatened legal action. Against Winslow. Against you. Against the incompetent team he inherited. He said you sabotaged the entire project. I smiled faintly. "Of course he did. He knows he's cornered," she whispered. "He keeps saying you won't get away with this." That made me laugh. "Jenna," I said. "He already didn't." Another pause. Then her voice cracked again. "He deserves this." "He does," I agreed quietly. Later that afternoon, Winslow issued a formal statement. All negotiations are suspended pending an investigation into inconsistencies presented by Allerton Dynamics. Within hours, the email leaked. By evening, analysts were tweeting. By nightfall, every financial news site ran a headline hinting at corporate misconduct. And the next morning, Allerton's stock dipped hard. By noon, it plummeted. At 2:13 p.m., Jenna texted me the message I'd been waiting for. He's gone. Derek was fired. Security walked him out. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I exhaled a long, shaking breath I felt like I'd been holding for years. but it wasn't over. People think revenge ends with someone getting fired. It doesn't. Revenge ends when the truth stands on its own. 1 week later, I received an unexpected call from Marin. "We'd like to hire you," she said simply. I blinked. "Excuse me?" As our director of strategic risk. "You see patterns others miss. You see danger before it hits. And you're not afraid to act when others hesitate." I swallowed hard. "Are you sure? I mean, after everything?" "We're very sure, Ms. Reed. And you've earned this." I closed my eyes. A job. Not just a job. A leadership role. My own team. My own voice. My own future. When I hung up, I sat on my bed, staring at the sunlight pooling across the floor. And for the first time since everything began, I felt something I'd almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. A week later, I was sitting in my new office. Glass walls. Towering view. A door they actually trusted me to close. When my phone buzzed. A message from Jenna. "You did it. I'm proud of you. He never deserved you." I typed back, "He deserved the truth." She responded, and he finally got it. That night, I stayed late in my office, watching the city lights flicker. I thought about Derek, about Ellerton, about every moment I doubted myself, every minute I worked overtime, every time I shrank so someone else could shine. Those days were gone. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't replaceable. I wasn't the woman who got walked out with a cardboard box. I was the woman who refused to stay erased. The woman who exposed the lie. The woman who stood up and won. Some people say revenge is about hurting the person who hurt you. But it's not. Revenge is the moment you take back the power they stole. And I took back all of it. Every last piece.